Hello and welcome to this short presentation of a long-awaited, well, at least for me, improvement that has finally found its way into the newly released Cubase 12 Pro. I will first emphasize that the VCA Faders feature is and has always been only available in the Pro versions of Cubase. So if you have a lighter version, then you can't use VCA Faders anyway. Before we begin, as a reminder, if you find this video helpful in any way, then please, I do invite you to like and subscribe to my channel. It's always very appreciated. So what are VCA Faders exactly? Well, first, they've been in Cubase for several versions now. That's nothing new, but I will explain later what has changed in regards to VCA Faders in Cubase 12. Okay, while they can be compared to group channel, they're very different. A group is part of your signal bus. It receives audio from one or more channels, and you can process this signal with inserts and EQs, everything like a regular audio channel, except it takes its source from one or more channel in your project. So as an example, you can see I have three groups here. Let's take one, and you'll see that it takes its source from these four channels. That's my trumpets. We'll go into more details later about that. So it takes its input signal from these source. There are several processing possible here, EQs and everything. You can see them in the mixer too. And then the group output, let me reopen it again. Well, it goes to 6 target right now, but more easily, let's look at the output here. Goes to another group, which is my brass global, which is the one right beside it. So I have two groups here that actually go into this one, and this one goes into my another group, which is my stereo mix. My stereo mix will go into mastering, and the mastering will go to my stereo out on my interface. So as you can see, every group can have different processing, sound treatment. My global one has another, and then of course the mastering one has all of the processes for the mastering. A VCA fader channel, on the other hand, does not process any audio signal. So you don't have any inserts, any EQs, any sends. All of these green faders here are all VCA faders, and you can see on the mixer that they don't have anything in them, any EQs insert and the likes, because they don't process sound. Okay, so it is just a single volume fader that in turn controls the volume fader of other channels in which it is to which it is linked to. So for example, let me move my all trumpets VCA here. You can see that it will control other faders. Okay, same thing for my trumpet one, and etc. I will show you more example later on. Right now, if you want to know more about groups and VCA faders differences, I will suggest a video above and in the description below from Selim, which I really like. He offers lots of good content videos and tutorials for Cubase users. So what's new with these VCA faders in Cubase 12? Well, previously and up to Cubase 11, the maximum number of VCA faders channeled you could have was 32. In Cubase 12, they've raised the limit to 256. Yay! Okay, perhaps you don't have a real way to tell if it was enough to have 32 or not, and why 256 is such a big deal. So let me tell you why I, like probably many other creators out there, perhaps you're one too if you're watching this video, so let me tell you why 32 was way too low. To do this, we have first to talk about templates. Orchestral composers and orchestral mockups aficionados like me usually work with many different tracks, and I guess a majority of us like to use templates to improve our workflow, where each and every instrument of the orchestra can each have several tracks. As you can surely imagine, these templates can get quite big. Here's a quick view of my latest template, which currently has like 486 tracks, and that's only a start because it doesn't include all possible articulations in it yet. Anyway, this template is roughly based on one that was made public a few months or years ago. Time flies by, so I don't quite remember. But it was made available by Christian Hansen from Spitfire Audio. I adapted it to fit my needs, and I find myself making regular improvements on it from time to time. I'll add the link to Christian's template videos down below in the description too. So you can see folders for each of the main orchestral section, like woodwinds, brass, strings, etc. And inside each of these, let's take the brass, you'll find subsection. Like for the brass, you have trumpets, horns, trombones, etc., etc. And then if we go even deeper for the trumpets, for example, you will find yet another level of folders representing each player or sometimes subgroups of the same instrument. For example, here we have the first and second trumpet. You could have more depending on your needs. And then you have trumpets at deux. At two means that two trumpets together, because several libraries offer patches of recorded groups of players like these, trumpet at 2, 4, 6. So they are available, so you would treat them like a group. And I also have here a template ensemble. So sometimes I can use ensemble, although I prefer using individual players and mixing them together. Finally, each of these individual folders that represent more often than not a single instrument instance of player will contain several VST instrument tracks, one track per articulation used. Now, I'm not from the key switch school of thought, okay? I won't get into details about key switching, but let's just say that I prefer to use one track per articulation. So you could have several long articulation tracks like legatos and sustains, and you could have several short articulation tracks like staccatos and spiccatos and others. Here I only have, it's just a template, so I have one example track for longs and one for the shorts, but I can duplicate them if I need more articulation, either short or longs. So this can get, like I said, quite big, because you have that for each and every instrumental player. You will have these several tracks, okay? 2, 3, 4 for each, depending on what you want to use for your creations. And that's just for the trumpets. That is why a template like this can be very useful. Now, in most templates I've seen, including this one, shorts and longs usually don't get the same sound treatment. What I mean by this is that it's a good practice to route the output of all short articulation tracks to a shorts group and the output of all long articulation tracks to a longs group, like I have here for the brass, like I showed you previously. I have here two groups. One is the brass global shorts and the other is brass global longs. They receive all longs go into this group and all shorts go into this one. And so of course you do this for each main orchestral section, so woodwinds, brass, strings, etc. And each of these pairs for each major main section are also routed, like I showed you, to a final per section group channel where you can apply a common treatment for both shorts and long. Each of these end of the line group channel for each primary section then go into the stereo mix, like I showed you right here. So it would be the same for each major section. Okay, so the shorts receive a sound treatment that is different than the long. It's a very good practice because like the reverb won't be the same for shorts and longs, and you can apply different sound treatment, and you can apply a final common sound treatment to your final group here for the section. So let me show you what this can look like using a very simple and incomplete diagram. So here you see the example with only parts of the brass. Okay, let's start from the final output and go back the line. We find our stereo out, of course, and then we find our mastering group channel, which would receive, you know, all the processes for the mastering. I didn't show them here for the sake of simplicity. Up the mastering chain, you would find the signal coming from all brass global, the group channel, where, like I said, you would process the audio coming from all major sections global group, which in turn receives the audio from their pair of shorts and long groups. Okay, so my all brass global, I didn't show also the common effects that could be applied in here, but it could receive common effect, and it received its signal from the shorts and the longs. Now at the bottom, don't quite stop at the VCA faders just yet, but look at the instrument tracks themselves. Now, where you see a bunch of short articulation from trumpet 1 and trumpet 2, they all go to the all short brass, you know, all brass short, sorry. And every long articulation from trumpet 1 and trumpet 2, they go into the all brass longs group. That would be the same for every brass section like horns and trombones and the likes, okay? So what's wrong with this setup? Well, in terms of sound routing and processing, as far as I know, that's the correct way to do it. But in terms of mixing, it's not user-friendly at all. We're now getting closer to our VCA Fader friends, I promise. The way it's usually set up, mixing can be complicated. In this example, let's say I want to adjust the balance between trumpet 1 and trumpet 2. Well, I would have to fiddle with a lot of faders here. And while it's okay to have to adjust the levels of my various articulation tracks between them for one instrument, you need to do this because there can be slight differences. Even coming from the same libraries, different articulation could have little slight difference. But if you go a step further and you use different libraries for different articulations, mix them together, for example, then you will have differences. So you need to balance them out for one instrument. But once it's done, I would like to leave them alone. So once I do it for trumpet 1, once I do it for trumpet 2, I want to leave these balance as they are and simply adjust trumpet 1 compared to trumpet 2. Same thing if I want to adjust the levels between my trumpets and my horns. Do I really need to play with dozens of faders to adjust the volume of one another? The way it is right now, yeah. Now, some professionals don't do their own mixing. And like Christian Hansen, for example, he built his template with this in mind, and he will use stem tracks to export all instruments to separate audio tracks and leave a professional mixer to do the mixing. Well, I can't do that, and that's why I removed them from my template. I do my own mixing, and I do it in parallel with the composing with the original VST tracks and groups. So backtrack 2 years ago when I was customizing Christian's template to my taste and trying to make it easier for mixing purposes. I discovered the VCA faders and realized they would be perfect for what I was trying to achieve. So what is it I want to achieve exactly? In the diagram, you can see the green VCA faders here. One for each group of tracks that make up one player or instrument, let's say, shorts and longs for trumpet 1 and for trumpet 2 there. And there is another VCA fader for the whole trumpet section. You would then find the same thing for every other instrument, like horn 1, horn 2, horn 3, and then all horns too would have the same thing. Now, Can you see why the 32 VCA fader track limit was preventing me to achieve this? In fact, in Cubase 11, worse is that the way you usually create VCA faders to link several tracks together was buggy. And you could go higher than 32, but then reloading the project would cause all kind of errors. And well, it simply didn't work. But there was no real warning about it. Unfortunately, I spent and lost a lot of hours before realizing that. So just in case you don't, you still don't realize why 32 was too low as a limit, let me open up all of the main sections of the templates, and you'll see that just in terms of subsections, I already reached my 32 track limit, I think. But if you take into account that each of these are composed of various players, then you can see that it goes fast, where you really reach more than 32. You need more than 32 to achieve what I wanted to achieve and make my life easier. So let's close everything up. So yeah, fast forward to Cubase 12 now, and here we are with a new limit of 256 VCA fader tracks. It looks like this now in my template. Let's take a look again into my trumpet section. I have several. These are VCA faders, by the way, these little icons. So I have several of these, which I usually like to put above everything else, but just because I find it easier to find all of them per section. There's a fader for example, for my first trumpet, and which you can see here. Let me play with it. Will control the two VST instrument tracks that I have for the trumpet one right now, shorts and longs. And if you create a balance between, like I said, my longs and my short articulation, I could have more, then you will see that my fader first trumpet will adjust the volume accordingly. It keeps the proportion. Even if I go down to 0, all of them are 0, and I go back up, it will keep the proportions between the various articulation that I have under control from this VCA fader. You can also, of course, set up the link group parameters. If I open my first trumpet link group settings here, let me bring that up. And you can set the name, which I usually use the same as the fader, the channel itself. And it's important that you have the use VCA fader there. And what I also usually tick for each player is the panning option, because I like once I adjust the panning of my trumpets, I like to adjust them so that they move together. Again, it's normal that you have all articulation be in the same position. Now, if you still have differences between the libraries you use, you would adjust the panning under each library itself and the VST instrument itself, and then you go and play with the panning from Cubase, from the mixer. So that's why I tick the panning option on my groups. But that's really up to you. The important thing here is that I use the VCA fader to control volume for the entire group. Now you can see I have the same thing for trumpet 2, which the VCA fader is here, and it controls the articulations track there for trumpet 2. And I also have trumpets at 2, trumpets, the 2 trumpets, and the trumpet ensemble. So I have all of the VCA fader for each player. So this way, if, for example, let me show you that I would have created a balance like this, and trumpet and ensemble like this, okay? Once I have adjusted all of these, then you know that my first trumpet adjusts the trumpet one, for second trumpet, and once I have adjusted even between the instruments, now the players, they are adjusted differently. All of these VCA faders are also linked to my all trumpet VCA fader. Like if I bring back my little picture here, that would be this one. So I have one fader per instrument and then one for the trumpets, for example. So it's here. And when I move this one, you can see that it moves everything. It moves the VCA faders that it controls, and these in turn will move the VCA fader, not the VCA, but the track, the instrument track faders that they are linked to. So it's pretty cool, and you can all automatize this. So if you have automation, it works. So that's pretty cool. On this one, however, you can, how do you link them? You see that all of these VCA faders are also linked in here. You see the group, the link group in which they belong. So you can see that my VST instrument channels here, you can see that here the link. So first trumpet, second trumpet, and the likes. And for the VCA faders, they are all linked to the all trumpets link group. Okay, that's how you visualize in which link group they are, and you can set up the group settings too. The all trumpets one, for example, I leave the pan option off. I only use the VCA fader. So by the way, all the muting and soloing of VCA tracks work perfectly well too. So it controls the mute and solo of the tracks that it controls. And all of this without sacrificing the individual sound treatment of shorts and long for each primary orchestral section. So since I do have groups for the whole brass section, okay, I can use these to adjust the bigger mix between the primary section. Of course, I won't create a VCA fader just to control the group, because if I want to adjust the brass, all the brass, I can just play with my global fader here, and it will lower its signal that it is processing. So no need to play with another VCA fader here. So meaning that between brass, woodwinds, and strings, I will play with the group. And I have a mixer configuration that only shows me groups and VCA faders. Now I have the all tracks, but if I do this, now I have all VCA and group channels only. So out of the way, the VSTs instruments that I already have adjusted, now I can really do the mixing of each individual players and subsection. Now, could you achieve the same thing by recreating the three group channels that I have for the brass? If you take these three and recreate three group channels for each individual player, possibly, but it would become a nightmare to manage, because you'd have to specify, the same sound treatment for each and every instrument. So and I'm not talking about the performance hit that would also surely follow if you do that. So no, the VCA fader, the way I do it now, I think it's a pretty good way to achieve mixing possibilities and ease of use. Okay, so how do I create this? Let's do a quick example here and say that I want to add a new brass instrument called the baritone. So I would first create under brass, I would create a first folder and call it baritones. Let's put that into brass. Okay. And then under baritones, let's say I have two baritones that I want to put in my template. So I'll have first and second baritone. Let's start with the first one. So I add another folder here and call it first baritone. Put it inside. And then under this one, I would create all of my VST instrument data tracks that I need based on the number of articulation that I want to have. Now, we're going to create two, one for longs and one for short for now, but as I said, you could have many shorts and many longs. Let's call that baritone template longs. Okay, and you know what? I can do a duplicate here and just call it template shorts. Now I have to route the signal of these to the proper groups. So we know that longs go to the brass. Here go to the brass longs, global longs, and the shorts will go to, I don't know why I did click there. We'll go to the short, the brass global short. So this take care of proper sound treatment for the instrument, and it will be coherent with the other brass instruments. Now I didn't set the because I don't have the real instrument here. It's not setting the right panning, but it doesn't matter for the example. Now I'm gonna just move them into first baritone, and then I can duplicate my first baritone, rename it second baritone, and here I am. I have the two empty VST track right now, but they are routed in a proper way to the right to receive the proper sound treatment. Okay, I moved my windows because I realized that my context menus would not show in the region I was recording, so I just swap both windows here. But okay, it's time now to create the VCA faders that will control each player. So that's the way you do it. You select all of the tracks, the instrument tracks that you want that represent the first baritone, for example. You right click, you add track, and you go VCA fader to selected channels. There you go. It added the VCA link 73 now. Now I will set up the link properties. I don't like the link 73 thing, so, and even the name. So I'm gonna just copy. Usually that's what I do. I copy the name of the instrument here. I paste it in the name of the VST, and not the VST, but the track, the VCA, and then I edit the link here, do the same, paste it in the group name. And remember, I said I like for each instrument to also have the pan, so I activate the pan and I make sure that the VCA fader is the right one. That's it. Okay, and I will do this the same for the second baritone. Right click, add track, VCA fader to selected channels, copy, paste, edit the link properties here, second baritone, and pan. So here you have it. Finally, I want the fader for the whole baritone section, so I'm going to select both VCA faders that I just created. Gotta do the same thing, add track, VCA fader to selected channels. Then you have another VCA that just appeared. I rename it to all baritones. Okay, and I can copy this. I'm gonna move this around a little, edit the group settings to all baritones. This one I don't click the pan because it's my group of players. And there you go. You have the all baritones that has been created. Now, the only thing that I like to do at this point is, like I said before, just move all of these to just under the baritones here. And I like to have the all baritones one just in first position. And the only thing that need to be done now is to colorize the whole thing. There you go. I don't have a real color. I'm gonna just use the tuba ones, just for the sake of it, the example. And there you go. You'd have all of your colorized tracks with the VCA faders created, and you can now adjust the volumes and move them so properly and you keep all proportions. Okay, let's say I very often need a third trumpet, so I want to add it in my template. So I'm gonna close this. I would probably move this also, higher up the chain like this. Okay, back to our third trumpet. What I would do here, I would probably just copy the second trumpet. Duplicate, where is it? Oh, the duplicate isn't there because I'm on the VCA Fader. Okay, let's take the second trumpet folder, the right one, and then duplicate tracks. Okay, I can start renaming that to third trumpet and open that up to see how it goes. So what I have right now, it just created my track with the same VCA fader, so it thinks it's in the same it's with the second trumpet. Well, I will first rename these to be correct. And yeah, if I play with my trumpet, my second trumpet here, you see that all of the second and third trumpet faders are moving. That's not what we want here. We want to create another one. So I'm going to create exactly in the same way. Well, first, to add channels to a link, it must not already be in one. So I wouldn't be able to, if I do it here, I do VCA Fader to select a channel, it will not do anything. You don't even get a message. So you first have to unlink or don't do unlink selected channels, because it will unlink all of the channels that are linked to this one. So that's not the way to do it. You have to go into included in link and then go none on this one. No, you want to keep the automation. Same thing for this one. None. No. So now that they are empty, I can once again go into my VCA Fader to selected channel. It will create a new one. So once again, I just click copy here, paste. I put it in the same color, trumpets. Okay, I move them up here. And now my third trumpet, I also need to change the group settings. Pan. Okay. It's not in my all trumpets group. So what do I do to include it in my already created all trumpets link group? I just go here, link setting, and then included in link group. It's number 27. So all trumpets. Now you can see here why the 32 track limit, VCA Fader track limit wasn't enough, because there's a few groups in here too, but no, I don't think there's not even a group. It's all the VCA Faders link groups that you have here. I have 79. So I'm going to put them, like I said, in my all trumpets. And voila, you have a third trumpet that is part of, the same all trumpets group. Okay, so that's it for this video. So I hope this has been helpful to you. And once again, if it did, go ahead and click the like icon and subscribe to my channel. And also you can leave a comment down below and let me know what you think of VCA faders, templates, and the workflow in general I'm using. So thank you for watching.